All right. I think we are live right now. Welcome back to episode 104 of the Think Big podcast. If it's your first week joining us, we're excited for tonight's episode. It's going to be a continuation from last week's episode because last week we broke records on lending. We were talking lending, all things from start to finish, how to scale it, how to get to a place of producing at minimum $500,000 per year in revenue into your business if all you did was lending. And people loved it. We got a lot of feedback in the DMs. People were reaching out to us on Facebook and Instagram asking us to do a part 2. And here we are tonight. So if you are on Instagram, I highly recommend you come over to the YouTube because that's where you're able to engage in the comments. Last week, Sam, I think we had 2 or 3 deals happen in our comments live. I saw David Smith. He got a deal funded by Kirk. I believe one of the doctors came on and she was able to connect with lenders. I forget what her name was. Do you remember her name from last week?
Dr. Courtney.
Dr. Courtney. So Dr. Courtney came in. I believe it was her first time ever tuning in to the episode as well. And she was immediately able to connect with investors to be able to put her money to work. I highly recommend. I'm not saying this just to get you off of the platform. I know you're on Instagram because you love being there. Come over to YouTube. It is 10x the value on this platform. Tonight, we are going to be talking all things that new investors need to understand on how to properly lend. Because in the world of lending, it has the very same issue that we saw in real estate, which is the problem with real estate is there's too many ways to make money. And if you're in that position where you've recognized being an investor is the way you want to go, you see the opportunity to make a lot of money, but you find yourself standing still, analysis paralysis, you haven't taken any action, and you can't quite figure out why everybody else is winning like 19-year-old kids and you're a 40-year-old who still hasn't made money. We want to solve that for you tonight for free. No course, no gimmicks, no bullshit. Let's just get into the meat and potatoes of it. So, Sam, I think that's what we're talking about tonight. Anything you want to add on that before I start to pull up the slides and presentations and all?
Yeah, guys, the big theme today, Marlon said this. You said there's a lot of ways to make money in real estate, but the reality of that, the flip side of that is if you don't have focus, there's a lot of ways to not make money in real estate as well. So, guys, today's big focus is going to be on 2 things. So, one, we're going to talk about the main types of lending that if you are a little bit to the newer side of lending, this is going to be important for you because we're going to help you focus on the things that actually matter and kind of cut out the noise. But 2, a lot of what we're going to do is actually dispel some of the myths, talk about my big thing which is scaling, the scalability of some of these methods, because you're going to be shocked at some of these things that you think are the end all be all things to do. And the reality is they're probably something you should do for no more than one little season. But dude, that's it. Let's get into it.
Awesome. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here, which hopefully I can. Beautiful. So you want to be a lender. Like, yo, Sam, did you play, just out of curiosity, when you were growing up, did you play Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Red, or Pokemon Blue? Which one were you?
So we had blue on the Game Boy Color. And then I even remember I had the purple transparent Game Boy Color.
Oh, that was a good Game Boy Color. I had the purple Game Boy Color. I didn't have the transparent one. And I played blue, and then I played yellow, then I played silver.
Love it. Love it. Wait, it's funny because I know there's so many people in the chat who have no idea what the hell they're looking at. And I'm just like, I think we just dated ourselves a little bit, but that's okay.
It's all good, man. So let's jump into this. I can't see anyone or anything. And so, Sam, you're going to have to let me know what's happening in the chat.
Gotcha, brother.
We're talking about becoming a lender. And the reason we've got this image up here is because ultimately you need to make a choice on what kind of lender you're going to be. Sam mentioned earlier, the hardest thing is people are faced with too many options and too many decisions to make. And the truth is you never have as many problems as you actually just have decisions to make. And so as we jump into this, I need to put out this disclaimer that we are not attorneys. We're not financial advisors. We're not CPAs. Nothing else that requires a degree. This is purely educational and entertainment purposes only. So do your own research, speak to your own professionals, and make your own decisions. But with that being said, let's talk about why this matters. And if I click on slideshow, there we go. I think we're full screen now. So why is this topic so important? Your attention. Your time and attention are non-refundable resources. And Oftentimes as an investor, we think the money is the most valuable resource we have. But Sam, you know this. What's the most valuable resource that any entrepreneur will ever possess for the rest of their lives?
It's that. To me, it's time and attention. But I mean, like the one word that I use for that is going to be focus.
It's your focus, it's your attention. And so being able to properly direct it is where you want to start. And that's what we're going to help you with tonight. Now, spending time on the wrong task is the most common mistake. I think see a lot of people, they'll buy mentorship programs, they'll buy courses, they'll go and talk to the wrong people, and they're getting advice for the wrong problems. Ultimately, it's not that you're not a lazy person, it's that you're just working on the wrong things. And so we want to be aware of this thing called leverage as a new investor. As a seasoned investor, we want to be aware of leverage. And it's not just an ROI, return on your investment. It's an ROE, an ROT, and an ROR. So if you don't know what these acronyms mean, write them down. They're the most important acronyms you need to know. Your return on your energy or effort. That's what the E stands for. The return on your time. Again, the resource that once you spend it never comes back. And the actual return on your resources. And so as we go through this here, let's talk about what you're going to learn. You're going to learn the difference between short-term, midterm, and long-term lending. We're going to learn the pros and cons of each of these. We're going to talk about industry standards and expectations. And I'm going to give you an easy decision-making matrix for helping you decide your path, because all this information is meaningless if at the end of the day, you don't truly make a decision and lock into a path. If you're in that season of you're just consuming, okay, fine. In a previous episode, I told you, you all have 50 hours worth of consumption. So if you're brand new to the industry, I mean, you just found out what being an investor is yesterday or today. You just found out about real estate. You just found out about entrepreneurship and business. You are in the safe zone. You've got 50 hours worth of consumption where you don't need to do a damn thing except absorb information, read books, listen to podcasts, be on the forums, and do all that good stuff. If you have passed your 50 hours, you are now responsible for picking a path and making a decision. And tonight, we're going to help the people who are interested in lending and interested in putting their money to work to make money, make money. We're going to help you pick a path that you can stick with for the next 90 to 180 days so that ultimately you can start making some money in this business, depending on where you are. And so here's what we're not going to talk about tonight. We're not talking about the paperwork of the deal, right? Like you want to get into the how's the easy part. That we'll cover in another episode in the future if you guys want it. We're not going to talk about legal structures, about how to put your entity together, how to put your LLC, where to get it. That stuff is not going to make you money. We're not going to talk about how to properly secure the paperwork or the money yet, because again, these things are all secondary to you making a decision. We're not going to talk about starting a fund, because if you're a new investor, you don't need to worry about that. We're not going to talk about being accredited, right? These are all the things that you've been hearing other people. These are buzzwords that you've been hearing online that have been getting you distracted that we don't need to talk about yet. And we're not talking about Sam's OnlyFans account. It's not happening tonight. I know the people, dude, Sam, the amount of DMs I get asking about how to get onto your OnlyFans, it is mind-boggling. I mean, the people want you. I don't know what you've been putting out there on the OnlyFans, but people want to know how to get that link.
Well, it's the only Sam's, and to be honest, I'm kind of disappointed because I had a discount code ready to go for people for the first month. Just give them the first month for free, but it's okay. It's okay. They'll just have to wait till later.
Dude, that's not tonight. So if you're new here, you need to know a little bit why maybe you should consider listening to us, because you don't need to accept anything we're going to say tonight, and you don't need to just reject it off the bat, and you don't need to neglect it. But I'm going to give you potentially a reason why maybe you should listen to me, and maybe you should listen to Sam. So I've been in real estate since October of 2020, and I started to buy properties back in 2021. So Sam, you might like this. I actually went back earlier this morning, and I was just curious to see on the transactions that I was able to find inside of my Google Drive, how much money I've borrowed since 2021. And since 2021, I've borrowed $2,692,000 and 406.72 cents. And with that money that I borrowed, I calculated how much I've paid my lenders on all the deals. I've paid out to my lenders almost $300,000, 297 to be exact. And I've never lost a dollar of my lenders' money, which I am absolutely proud to say, because that is one of the most important things for investors to know. And so I've had a lot of experience handling my lenders' money and working with new and experienced lenders, helping them to transact with me and to make their money make money. And Sam is an interesting character. He's done over 300 real estate transactions in the last 3 years. And just to put this into perspective, Sam only started real estate 3 years ago. So you got to take into account, like the beginning, there weren't as many transactions. So much of this, he figured out what worked and then doubled down on it. And so many of these transactions have occurred just in the last 2 years alone. So Sam has a crap ton of experience. And so I want you guys to listen to guys who are actually doing this business, who have done it and who are doing it as of this moment. So, Sam, anything you want to add on that as why people should maybe consider what we have to say?
Yeah, the other big thing is for me on an operations side, right? Guys, I raise money. I raise tons of money. I'm actually selling off all my single family. I'm going to go buy big assets that cost millions and millions of dollars, like self-storage facilities. That's all I'm going to do in real estate now outside of the wholesaling. And so one thing I'm really phenomenal at is raising capital. The first time I started even raising capital, I raised $1.175 million within 24 hours. And that was my first go at it. And now we're really freaking good at it. And I think it's important for me and Marlon to say this. When we come at this, guys, we primarily are the borrowers, right? Marlon, you and I typically, we're the guys who go and get the deals. We operate the deals. We're typically the borrowers. But here's the interesting thing. Marlon, you and I over the last year and a half, we've started to get really heavy into lending ourselves because we have so much active income coming in from our various income streams. So now, like you're doing lending, you're lending a lot. I'm lending a ton. Guys, we've done the EMDs, we've done the transactionals. I love lending on land. Now we're getting into some bigger kind of things and we're getting into the funds. But what we want to do here is the reality is this, guys, it took me 3 years. It took him about 3 years too, right? In terms of raising capital, deploying it, paying people back. The big thing is this, guys, there's information that's out there and then there's insight, and those two totally different things. So our big takeaway here, our big kind of sticking point is we don't want to just give you guys information. We want to, from the point that we're at, the experiences that we have, give you the actual insights because that's actually what matters. Right? I can go and tell you how many macros are in whatever the heck food you want to eat, but Marlon is going to be able to give you the insight from having done it, tried that food, tried it, ran a marathon with it, understanding how it affects his body from an actual firsthand experience at a very high level. And so our goal today is insight, not information. I hope that makes sense.
I freaking love that, dude. Sam, you got away with words, man. And so to that point, to Sam's point of insight, we've got to start off with some basic definitions. Nothing I'm going to say tonight should cause a migraine. We are keeping this at a 5th grade level. In fact, that might even be 2 levels too high because I learn at a 3rd grade level. So we're keeping this at a 3rd grade level. And I just want, for the sake of this conversation, us to agree upon some very basic terms. And so the first term is going to be short term. Whenever I say short term, if I'm referring to lending, short term borrowing, anytime you see short term, I'm typically talking 30 days or less. If I say midterm, I am talking between 31 days and 180 days. So 31 days being 1 month up to 6 months is going to be midterm. Long term is going to be 181 days or more, also known as 6 months or longer. Also, our goal here is for you to learn. And our definition of learning, and I think Sam would agree with me on this, is learning is same condition, different behavior. Right now, your condition is not going to change from you watching this YouTube. It's just, that's the reality. Like at the end of this hour, you're probably going to be sitting in the same house you're sitting in right now. Your bank account's probably going to have the same amount of money. You're probably going to have the same friends. You're probably going to be married to the same person. All those things in your life are going to be the same at the end of the hour. However, if you're learning, what will begin to happen is you will begin to do new behaviors. You'll begin to behave as you didn't previously to get new results. So our goal here is for you to learn. We want you to act differently because of what you watch and consume tonight. And this last word is a word that I want everybody to become familiar with because it's become one of my favorite words over the last 3 weeks. maybe even longer. It's probably 6 weeks now. I've been using this word. It's autotelic. And autotelic is essentially having an end or purpose in and of itself. When Sam is working, here's one thing I love about Sam, guys. And Sam hears me say this to him regularly. My favorite thing about Sam is a monster at building and scaling business. He gets it at such a detailed level. It's kind of scary. And what Sam enjoys is building business. So for Sam, the act of going and working on his business every day is the end in and of itself. It's the reward. The process is the reward. Ultimately, I think everybody should, this is my opinion, but I feel you're going to produce at a higher level if you're doing this. If you find an avenue inside a business, if you find an avenue inside the world of investing that you enjoy the process of, that the work itself is the reward. It's not just closing the deal and getting the paycheck. That's awesome, but it's the actual making the calls. It's the actual underwriting of the deals. It's the actual paperwork, whatever part of this business that you genuinely enjoy for its own sake, and you're able to master that and become the master of it. That's where you're going to become autotelic. And that's when you become like a LeBron James or a Oprah Winfrey or an Elon Musk inside of your zone of genius. Cool. Now, here's how tonight's flow is going to go. Each deal, we're going to talk about each deal type. We're going to talk about those short-term deals. We're going to talk about the midterm deals. And we're going to talk about the long-term deals from the standpoint of lending. And as we go into each of them, we're going to be covering what the standard deal flow looks like, what sort of expectations you can have as a standard for the industry. We're going to talk about the sort of work involved to get these deals done, the risk associated, and the typical ROIs you can expect. What we want to do is we want to lay an expectation, because as you have that, you'll be able to look for yourself and discover which ones work for you. We're also going to go over what I call the lender's matrix. And this is going to be a very simple decision-making matrix that will allow you within less than 1 minute to be able to identify what your lending avatar is. Now, let's talk about short-term lending. And I'm probably going to have Sam talk more about the short-term lending, because I don't do as much short-term lending. I do midterm and long-term lending. So I'm going to let Sam talk a little bit more about short-term lending. I'm going to throw this up on the screen for him to run through.
Awesome. So guys, quick 10,000 foot overview of what short-term lending looks like. At the end of the day, lending, there's going to be a lot of terms out there for lending. I think people are coming up with new terminology and new methods every 5 minutes. The reality of lending is there's only two greater umbrella ideas, and that is the amount of time that the money is held for and the type of asset or the type of deal the money is being deployed into. You know those two things, you can then start assessing risk. You can then start figuring out where your real niche kind of is, your avatar should be. And so today we're only really going to go over like the big three, right? Short-term, midterm, long-term. I think we may hit on some like special stuff towards the end. But here's the thing with short-term, right? The big thing here, right? Can you do a short-term, let's see, double close I would consider transactional, but let's talk about EMD, earnest money deposits. That's kind of the big thing that's going up a lot lately. Is people love EMD lending. Why? Because you don't need a ton of money up front. The reality is if you've got a couple $1,000s up to like 5K, you can start funding wholesalers EMDs, right? And the cool thing about EMD lending is that when you deploy, I'm not going to talk too much into the securement side of it, but a good EMD deal typically is never going to even leave title. That's the whole point. And it's not going to leave the escrow company, the escrow account. And that's kind of like the draw or the attraction point for a lot of EMD deals. It's in that essence, it attracts a lot of newbies. Now, here's a reality that I want people to consider, right? Here's an insight from doing a lot of this is the thing with EMD lending is that there is a generally lower barrier to entry, right? A lot of people think that you have to either have your own money, but the reality is in all these forms of lending we're going to talk about, we should have said this earlier, you don't need your own money. As long as you can go get access to someone else's money, you can go and lend it out. It's exactly what banks do. We talked about this last week. But the reality with EMD lending specifically is because it's smaller amounts, because the money typically is not supposed to leave the escrow account, because there's not a massive amount of risk on it, and there's tons of wholesalers out there doing deals, there is little to no barrier to entry. And what ends up happening is in the grand marketplace of competition, there are more players in the game. Now, the truth is there may not be many phenomenal players in the game who are super good at the game, but there are a lot of people playing ball or trying to play ball or trying to be involved. And so what's going to naturally happen from an actual insight perspective is there's a ton of noise in the EMD kind of ecosystem when wholesalers say, hey, I've got a deal. I need $5,000 for an EMD. And knowing wholesalers, it's probably due in the next 48 hours. The problem that you're going to have when you start going and trying to acquire these deals is you're going to have 75 other people who are immediately responding, trying to DM the person, trying to get the deal funded, because honest to God, everyone's got access to 1 to 5K right now. Like if you don't have it, you can go find someone who does and get it funded fairly easily, fairly quickly. What I like about EMD deals is they're quick. They're super quick turnarounds, right? A couple weeks, usually, sometimes up to 30 days. It really just depends on the contract the wholesaler has going on. But here is the thing that I want people to consider when it comes down to the EMD stuff is I view everything from a scalability standpoint, right? So I'm going to keep hitting on scale. Like you guys will find that I never dwell too much on the deal type. I care about, is the model automatable? Is the model systematizable? Is the model scalable, right? With people, processes, and systems. So here's the thing, guys. When it comes down to the EMD side, from a fundamental standpoint, the best people you want to lend money to, right? The best wholesalers out there. The reality is, Marlon, are most of them putting up $5,000 EMD per contract?
Not most of them,
no. No. And the reality is the highest level guys, the guys who I've learned the game from, who I hang out with in my masterminds, the reality is most of them, they may put any number on the contract. And then the reality is they never deploy the funds anyways. They never send the money into EMD, or the ones who are really gangster about it, right? And I'm not advising you do this. I'm just, regurgitating what I've seen people do, and it worked really well for them, is they will use promissory notes in lieu of an actual monetary deposit of an EMD. And like, you can basically do that. Like it works. They crush it at scale. Because you can imagine if you're doing 30, 40, 50 contracts a month and you're putting 500 to 1,000 on EMD on every single contract, I mean, you will have some serious capital constraints and logistical constraints on top of that. So even though I like EMD deals as an entry point for people to get into the game, and I see tons and tons of value in it, my thing with EMD lending is it is a season for you to get some experience, get into some transactions, meet some good people, maybe find a wholesaler who is crushing, who is on the come up, who you can build an early phenomenal relationship with, right? But to me, EMD lending is a season. And I'm going to come back and hit on this from a scale perspective. And here's why. Scalability truly is unlocked with one core principle. Can I hand it off to somebody else? That is leverage. Can I hand it off to someone else or another system? And when we deal with profits, right? So if you look at the end point, the typical ROI can be 40%, it can be a flat fee. Very often when people say, hey, I've got $1,000 EMD, I want to get that funded on an EMD loan. Cool. Most EMD lenders are not going to do that unless they get minimum $500 back, right? Because it's only worth the time. And if you're doing $5,000 on an EMD loan, typically they're going to want maybe between $1,500 to $2,500 back. All good. And that's a good chunk of money. And that's for a lot of people. If you do a couple of those a month, you can pretty easily replace your active income from your W-2. Like it's very, very doable. Here's the problem at scale that's going to happen. There may not be enough meat on the bone for you to incentivize and scale a team for it to be automated. If you're like me, I like building businesses that do not require my time in the businesses. I love working on them, not in them. And the reality is, if I'm doing $5,000 loans, and let's just say my average profit's going to be $2,500, that's awesome. Here's the issue with that. At scale, there's not a ton of margin for it to make sense for me to bring multiple people in to the business and have enough meat on the bone for them to be incentivized and the business to grow. And so I want to do this exercise really quick, right? So here's the reality, right? And you guys know me, I'm a big fan of hiring off Indeed, hiring people who are salaried workers. Why? Because It's better for the business to have people who are W-2 minded. The problem with, honest to God, most people in the community, in the industry, in the ecosystem, is they're going to tend to not hire from Indeed. They're going to tend to hire from whatever mentorship or mastermind or community they're in, and you end up hiring your peers. The problem is your peers aren't going to work for a salary of $1,000 to $2,000 a month. Your peers want a piece of the pie, right? And so I want you guys to do this kind of math right here. Let's just say in a month, right? You are doing EMD deals. I'm going to pretend you do 10 deals, okay? 10 deals, and they all crush. They all win. They all work. You make money on all of them. All of them are $5,000 loans, right? $5,000 EMD loans, and this is a perfect world. And you get, I'm going to be generous here. You're going to get $2,500 back each time, right? It's a killer deal. It's a freak. That's a killer setup as far as EMD deals are concerned. If you're doing 5 of them a month, right? Not only, 10 of them a month. Not only do you have to have $50,000, right? $5,000 per deal, 10 deals a month. That's $50,000, okay, in liquid capital to send out. That can be your money, someone else's money. It can be on credit cards. It can be on a HELOC. It can be on a bunch of random stuff. Okay, that's fine. The thing is this: once those get paid back, you've got 25,000 coming in, right? That sounds awesome for most people. Let's say you want to take this to $1 million. Let's say you want to take it to past $1 million a year. Here's the issue. If you're hiring your peers, which a lot of people are because they believe in squat up mentality, and I'm totally okay with that, here's what's going to happen. Out of that 25K, in a perfect world where you have 100% close rate, right? You and your partner are going to split what? Half and half usually, right? Marlon, that's usually the case, right? People, they're going to squat up and split things 50-50. So your 25,000, right, isn't really 25,000 for you. It's, what is that? 12,500.
Yep.
So 12,500 is your actual, and don't get me wrong, that's fantastic for 99.9% of America. And this is going to do really, really, really well for you for a while. But here's the thing, guys, 6 months in, a year in, it becomes very difficult to scale. And here's why. EMD loans, Marlon, have you, I know you don't do a ton of them. Here's my biggest thing with EMD loans. They require typically a ton of babysitting. And at scale, you're not going to spend your time just checking in on the wholesaler, checking in on the buyers, doing all the things. At scale, you're going to have a transaction coordinator, a TC, maybe, hopefully someone who's in-house handling a lot of these transactions. Well, guess what happens to your 12.5K? Right? Depending on the TC, unless you've trained them in-house, you're using an outsourced service, which is a lot of TC companies nowadays. They're going to typically charge you per transaction or per deal. And depending on the kind of setup that you have with them, some of them may charge a few $100, some of them may charge 500, 750. It just depends on the deal. And so what ends up happening is that 12,500 top line to you after your partner payouts, right? Let's just say you're like the CEO. Your job is to pay for the whole system. Well, then you have your CRM, right? Let's just say you are, oh, here's the other thing. Let's say you have the CRM. Then you have the TC fees that are going to be taken out of it, right? And then here's the other big thing. Most of us probably aren't going to be deploying $50,000 of our own money. A lot of us may not even have that $50,000 to begin with. It's why we're doing EMD lending. Here's the issue. We're going to go get someone else's money, right? So that 25,000, Marlon, that 12.5K that pays to me, if I'm using someone else's money, I got to pay them too. And the reality is I'm probably going to pay them a lion's share of things because I used their money. I risked their money. And so although I like EMD lending, I think it's a great entry point. My thing with this, I have this term that I use, and it's called logistical drag. I don't like transactions that at the end of the day, if I'm profiting maybe 1,000 to 1,500 top line, right? 1,000 to 1,500 top line to me after my partner payouts, after all the things, like that's a good deal for me. That's cool. I don't want to have a team of people to manage just that one payout. And that's the issue that I have with EMD lending. There's so many moving parts, so much nurturing, so much fall through. The deals fall through left and right. Like, do not get me wrong. And here's the other big thing. I am very honestly, I mean, there's people like Ryan Schroep's in the chat. Ryan Schroep crushes with EMD loans. He's built such a phenomenal brand that people are very loyal to him. The problem with a lot of people who are getting started, they don't have a brand. They don't have a personal brand. They don't have a community that, kind of will allow you to just really crush it and for you to be the go-to guy. And so what ends up happening in the beginning, when no one knows who you are, you have to be competitive. You have to compete on rates. You have to compete and be more active to get the deals. All of this stuff, all that ends up happening, and I've seen this through and through, bro. I can be wrong. Let me know in the chat if someone else feels this way. I've never met someone doing EMD loans as their primary business model who 6 months later didn't believe the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. That's my personal take. So I like this model as an entry model. I do not like it in scalability because of logistical drag, right? You have technically high profit margins from a percentage perspective because you are lending, but you have the issue of, is the juice worth the squeeze? And in this one, for me, from a scale standpoint, I don't think it is. So that's what I got on that, bro.
Beautiful. And so for people that are listening and actively looking for where do you fit into this scenario, I want to say this right now. Effectively based on, and I agree with Sam's analysis, based on what Sam said, if you are a newer investor and typically a younger investor, you have more stamina, you have more time, and you need to go and develop skills, and you have the capacity to go out and do the hustling, then this is going to be an awesome strategy for you to get your foot into the world of lending. Even if you're slightly older and you understand the skill set required, just recognize that this is going to be the entry point into the world of lending. And the reason it's the entry point is because of how little resources you actually need of your own in order to get started. Very similar to wholesaling inside of real estate. This is the equivalent of that world, of that strategy, but for the lending world. Let's look at the next one. So we got our
really quick, Marlon, if I could say this, I really want to hit on this, and I want people to think about this. I haven't seen one yet. Here's the thing. EMD lending, phenomenal model. I love it. I think it's a great thing to do. I think it has its purpose. I care about scale, right? That's all I care about is scalability. How can I take this to millions? The reality is this. I haven't seen a single lending company, and I could be wrong, they may be out there, I just haven't seen them yet, go multi-millions just yet. Automated EMD lending. I haven't seen it.
I don't think it's ever going to happen personally.
I could see a route where it could happen, but it would require so much effort. And honestly, I think
I don't think
if
there's
anyone that would do it, bro, I think it'd be Ryan Stroke.
I don't think there's enough of a demand. I just don't think it'd be worth. I think the people that have the skill set to make it happen are going to take that skill set and apply it into a larger vehicle. But they would still keep this vehicle open because it's such a good entry point for people to be able to get into the world, because not everybody's going to start at the top. Not everybody's going to start with the biggest strategies. And there are people who need to, and I'm one of those people. So let me not make this sound like there are people out there and like it's them, not me, because I'm definitely a person that has to crawl before I walk and walk before I run. And there are people where this strategy effectively allows them to crawl and build up the confidence. And that's why, like, I love, like, what I'm in Ryan's community. I love watching people get their first deals inside of Ryan's community, get that taste, and be able to now say, okay, I understand, and I want to go faster.
Love it. Love it. Let's get to the next one.
Yes, sir. All right, let's look at this. We got midterm lending. And so, guys, remember, when we're talking midterm lending, we are talking about anything that's going to be 31 days or longer. So effectively a month to 6 months, that 31 to 180 days. And inside this world, we got transactional lending. And so you may have heard of this in different words. So some people call it flash funding. Some people call it same day funding. And some people call it 1 day bridge loans. Actually, I don't know why this says midterm. This should be on the short-term side of things. Sorry about that, guys. So this should say short-term lending. Let's go ahead and edit that right now. We'll edit it later. Let's do this. Slideshow. Cool. Did I edit it? Can you see this one? Beautiful.
Yeah, it's short term now.
Cool. So with the short-term lending on the transactional lending, I'm actually a pretty big fan of this, because this kind of lending, for people that don't understand what this means, effectively, this is when wholesalers are looking to double close. So there may be an instance where, let's say Sam's got a fat rip and he's going to make a triple-digit assignment. He's going to make over $100,000 as an assignment fee. But he understands If the seller sees that Sam is going to make that much money, even though he's going to solve the seller's problem, the seller may get upset when they look at the closing statement. They see on the settlement statement that there's a $100,000 assignment going to Sam's company, and they may terminate the deal, not show up to closing, and just do whatever. Deals go south like this all the time. So wholesalers who are aware of this, and they're aware of just human psychology, that people will naturally not want to see you win that much more than them, are going to try to sabotage. So what they will do is they'll do something called transactional lending, and they'll do a double close. When wholesalers are doing a double close, this creates a fantastic opportunity for lenders to be able to come in with the funds to help them buy the property and on the same day resell the property, usually within a few hours of each other. So the transaction happens all in the same day. Now, with this sort of lending, typically lenders are going to need access to more capital because you're actually purchasing the entire property. You're not just lending $1,000 or $5,000 for an earnest money deposit. You're actually now lending the entire purchase price and usually covering the closing costs and things of that nature. Typically, depending on your market, the purchase price could be anywhere on the low end from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars that you would need to be able to come up with in entirety to help this transaction close. Now, what's cool about this sort of transaction is it's very safe and secured because oftentimes the only reason you're agreeing to this is because you already have the A to B contract signed, you already have the B to C contract signed, and so effectively all of the documents are already in place. And usually your buyers have already put in the earnest money deposit that are going to close on the B to C transaction, showcasing that they are serious. And so from that standpoint, the lender's money is pretty secure. There's no such thing as an absolute guarantee. However, in the world of lending, this is one of the closest things we get to it because all of the paperwork is pre-signed before you ever even get into the deal. So you're not hoping that down the road they're able to sell it. The buyer is already there on day one. Now, one of the challenges with this form of lending, like I mentioned before, is you do need to have the capital all ready to deploy. And so whether you're using your own capital or getting access to someone else's capital, you need to have all of it. And typically it's going to be in a shorter period of time. You're not going to get oftentimes a lot of due diligence on these deals because the reality is the wholesalers that bring these sort of deals to you, the reason they're getting such large spreads is oftentimes they're great at sales, they're great at negotiation, and they're leveraging time as the resource and the value add in the proposition when they're going and contracting the house. They're telling the homeowners, listen, we can get this transaction closed for you in 7 days, in 14 days. We could get it closed for you as quickly as title could run the paperwork. And so you're not getting a 45-day runway to do any sort of due diligence. These deals are, if you say yes, you need to be able to fund typically inside of 24 hours. They want to be able to move and they want to go on these. That's number one. The second thing is the hard part about these sort of transactions is because of how secure the transaction is, there are a lot of institutional lenders who are already lending on these kind of deals. So you may not have a lot of competition in the private sector of private money lenders who are going to go and be transactional lenders because not enough private money lenders have the capital to lend at this hundreds of thousands of dollars in a single transaction, but you are going to have a lot of competition going up against institutional lenders. So going after your actual hard money lenders and your actual transactional lenders that do this professionally and raise millions of dollars for these sort of transactions. They have websites, they rank high on Google, they're paying to be in front of people at the local real estate meetups. And so they are putting effort into marketing to the audience of newer investors to get their attention so that when those people get these sort of deals, they come to them first. So you're really, all of these strategies are going to require you to be an excellent marketer. This one, even more so, because you are going to be going up against big dogs who have funds to market and be in front of people. They're going to have a credibility package. They're going to have banners. They're going to have all of that. So you're really going to have to win people over on being in front of them, staying front of mind, as well as creating that genuine connection. Now, the typical ROIs that you're going to see on these sort of deals is going to be a 2 to 12% of the purchase price. And this is interesting these deals, think about this. You're getting in and out in typically one day. So let's say you're getting 2% as a return on your money in that one day. If you annualize that, you're actually getting, what is that, a 720% around annualized return on your investment, because in one day, your money's increasing at 2%. If I multiply that by 365, that's going to be seven whatever. So these are very lucrative deals. The challenge with them is you're going to have to go out, just like with EMD lending, just like with Gator lending, you're going to have to go out and keep finding the next transaction. But what is nice, again, is you're getting such a high return on your investment because of the speed. Your money is in and out in typically just a single day, sometimes a few days because of the weekends. So, Sam, anything on this one that you feel we missed?
A few things. So one, I see this play. Okay, so I see EMD lending as the one that is getting the highest number, like the highest absolute volume of new people entering it, right? But the reality is 99% of those people, just by the law of business, are not going to succeed, and they're not going to stick with it. They're not going to, become massive successes in that methodology or in that vehicle. Here's the thing with this, especially with like same day double closing. One, I think this is the one where out of all the people who are coming into this, most of them are not freaking newbies. Most of them are people who absolutely know what they're doing. They know how to market. They know how to brand. They know how to find deals. They know how to partner with operators. The reality is when people get into this specific game, the majority of them, at least from what I've seen, a lot of them are my friends, they absolutely are beasts at business. And here's one thing that, like Marlon hit on this, a lot of times when you're dealing with same day double closing, right? There's not a huge time window. You have to have an air of your risk tolerance, truthfully, has to be a little bit higher, I think, with this, because of the pressure that you will feel with someone coming to you saying, hey, I need you to fund $250,000 in the next 24 to 36 hours. Like, that is the truth of a lot of the double close game. And what's going to end up happening is this, and I've seen this happen in a lot of local markets. There's going to be guys who do not have any social media kind of platform, but they are like good old boys with like all the title companies, and all the title companies will refer them business. And these guys, they get so competitive with their rates. They can be, I've seen it as low as 0.75% for a same day double close, for a 24-hour turnaround. And so for things like that, you are competing, in my opinion, in this game, you are competing against better quality talent, higher level people, higher level operators. You have to have a higher level of just general, I don't know if risk tolerance is the right word, but a general kind of essence of you need to be an executor. This is not one of those things where you can sit and just kind of mull it over and think about it and soul search. Deal comes in, it's a good deal. You pretty much have to take the chance and move on it. That's a big thing. And here's my thing though. For me personally, I really like this because we're being very general here. Marlon and I do a lot of short-term lending, and even like short to mid-term lending, right? But in the vehicle that we do it with matters. How you do short-term or mid-term lending with single-family properties, right, versus land, totally different ball game. And very often I do like, if we are going to do this, at the end of the day, it is going to be like first position usually, because it's wiping out the entire purchase price. So I do appreciate that. I think this one, for me, the short-term and the mid-term stuff, both of them together, I like them from an active income standpoint, because I think one, you can treat it like active income, right? Short-term lending with this, like double close, same day funding, it's this very similar to EMD in terms of the timelines, right? Very similar in terms of timelines usually. But the cool thing about this is you typically make way more money. And so remember how I mentioned with the EMD side, you don't have tons of profit coming in to fund reinvestment back into the business, to bring on better talent, to invest in better systems to scale your business. With this, you've got a lot more meat on the bone coming in, which allows you to then hire better talent, right? Hire people to delegate to, and that gives your business a lot more scalability. So, thumbs up from Sam.
Love it. Let's keep going here, because I'm looking at the time and we are behind. So I'm going to speed this up, everybody. Midterm lending. So when you talk about midterm lending, this is your gap funding, also known as your bridge loans. And I used to hear the terms and I thought they were talking about two different things. Effectively, if you hear someone talking about gap funding and bridge loans, they're effectively the same thing, unless you're in some weird part of the world where they have much two different definitions. And so this is effectively when a person goes out and let's say they're going to do a fix and flip. This is where you most often see these sort of loans, that a person is getting a hard money loan for the purchase of their fix and flip. And think about this, everybody, as a lender, right? I want you to be aware of the people you're lending, what they're doing. They might come to you and say, "Hey, I just need $30,000. I got this fix and flip that we're going to go take on." And you're like, "Okay, well, what's the money going towards?" And they said, "Well, I've got a hard money lender who's going to fund the purchase and 100% of the rehab." And you might be thinking to yourself, "Well, why do you need my $30,000 if the hard money lender is going to fund the purchase and 100% of the rehab?" Well, the hard money lender is still requiring that the real estate investor, come in with a down payment. And so your $30,000, the hard money lender doesn't really care where the money comes from. They just want it. And so they want to make sure that these investors have some skin in the game. And so that skin in the game happens to be your money. And so they come in with this gap funding or this bridge loan, and they use it to bridge the gap between the down payment and the hard money. And that money now is a part of the deal. So what you want to pay attention to with this is when you're lending on a gap funding deal, you're not going to need to come up with as much money as you would for, let's say, a transactional lending, because you're not covering the entire purchase price. You're just covering the down payment for the hard money loan. However, with these sort of deals, you're typically going to be in the deal longer, because most oftentimes what happens is your money is now in the deal until that project is complete. Pay attention to this. Your money is in the deal until that project is complete. And this is why it's on the midterm lending side, because most often when fix and flippers, if they're good operators and they're true operators and they're not doing luxury flips, they're doing traditional flips, they're looking to be in and out of those deals within 45 to 180 days. Because when you're fixing and flipping, time is your enemy. You are on a race against the clock. You want to get into that property and sell it while the market conditions are still the same, while they're predictable, while you can still trust the comps that you're working with today, while you still have access to your contractors, while you still have access to material. So effectively, you're going to be in this deal as a lender until the deal is over. What else do we need to pay attention to? On a gap lending, you're most likely going to be in second or third position. The hard money lender is oftentimes going to take first position, and they will allow you to be in second position. What does that mean? It means if anything were to happen on the property and the seller or the buyer, the borrower stops making their payments, the hard money lender or yourself would have the ability to foreclose and take the property back and resell it. When the property is sold, the hard money lender is going to get paid back first, and then the second position loan will be paid back if there's money left over. So you're putting yourself slightly at more risk. You can mitigate that risk by just ensuring that the property has enough equity to cover yourself. The thing about these sort of deals is, although you may not be the fix and flipper, you still need to have knowledge about real estate. You need to have enough knowledge to vet and underwrite the deal yourself. You need to do your own due diligence on this deal, because effectively, you're not swinging a hammer, but you are now a part of this deal. And your money you don't want to just trust what the investor says. You want to do your own due diligence to make sure that, hey, you know what? The numbers do actually check out. Now, there is something nice about this, because I get it. You're wanting to be a lender because you don't necessarily want to do all the work of being a real estate investor. Maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're an attorney, and you're like, "Marlon, I don't have the time to sit there and be underwriting deals all day." I get that, but you do want to underwrite the deals that you're going to lend on. But you do have this working for you. When hard money lenders lend, typically, if they're professionals, they are also underwriting the deal. And so if a hard money lender is going to approve the loan, it's not the end all be all, but in my mind, that's just one extra pair of eyes looking at the deal, telling me, okay, there's potentially something here. I've worked with hard money lenders in the past, and they will say no to some people and they will say yes to some people, because typically I like when they work with hard money lenders who are local to the project, hard money lenders who are also flipping in the same area, because those hard money lenders will not lend on bad deals, right? So that's one of the nice things. So as a gap lender, what I believe your responsibility would be, if you're going to do this, is going to be to ask your borrower or ask the investor, who's your hard money lender and are they local? Make sure that they're local hard money lenders. And if you wanted to, you can no problem pick up the phone and call them doing your own due diligence. I think it's worth it to do that kind of work, because if you find out this is a good relationship, this is a good operator, and these are good hard money lenders and these are good deals, then you now have a vein to put your money into continuously over and over and over. The nice things about doing these sort of transactions is these sort of lenders will come back to you over and over. So what will happen is you'll start getting repeat customer. You'll have a larger lifetime value on the customer once you start stepping out of the realm of short term and start stepping into the realm of midterm. You're going to start to be able to transact with the same person more often, because if they're flipping, odds are they're going to continue to flip for a longer period of time. So typically on these sort of loans, you're going to see an ROI usually between 8 and 20, more closer to the 15 and 20%, because they are taking on the risk of being in second position. So you'll potentially be able to make a little bit more money, a higher return on your money than standard. Sam, anything else you want to add to this one?
So if anyone's on Marlon's thing, that shouldn't have posted to his chat. That's me. So okay. So I'm just saying, midterm, this is my personal favorite. I like gap funding. The reason why is I think the juice is worth the squeeze here the most, right? Especially for the season that I'm in. I like this because like my goal right now is I want to freaking conquer the world, right? I'm not in a position right now where like, do I have a lot of money coming in? Can I just put it into someone else's rental properties and make a good 10% and it's like that's it? Sure. But in the world of opportunity cost, I'm willing to take the risk and go kind of try to get more bang for my buck. So for me personally, I love midterm lending. It fits my profile the most. I just want people to be aware. Here's a couple things that you have to be aware of when it comes down to this type of lending. And depending on the type of deal, whether it's a land deal or whether it's a single family property, whatever it is, or it's a fix and flip. One, if there is a house involved, I'm sorry, it never goes to the timeline you think it will in the beginning.
Nope.
The positive approximated, it's going to be 4 months in and out, 4 to 5 months. It's going to take 8. Just understand that is the nature of flipping houses. And that is okay. That is okay as long as you have proper communication with everyone involved. That's number one. Number two, out of all the forms of lending that we've talked about, in my opinion, and I could be wrong here, in my opinion, this is the one that is most easily influenced by current market trends. When you're home or when you're lending on a long-term 5-year play, right? The reality is that 5-year time horizon is your insulation against market volatility. Midterm lending is where, especially on a fix and flip, guys, what's happening right now? We're in an election cycle, right? And when you're lending, especially on a gap or a bridge loan to a fix and flipper, right? Who is their customer at the end of the day? It's John and Jane Smith who are looking for their first starter home. Like that's the reality of it. And those consumers, they don't know anything about the real estate industry. They only know what, the big media outlets are telling them. Is it a good time to buy or is it a bad time? Do they even understand why it's a good time or why it's bad? Hell no. But the reality is their favorite channel, whether it's Fox or CNN, said it's a good or bad time. And so right now, especially in an election cycle, we have this thing called buyer speculation. We don't know if Donald Trump's going to win. We don't know if Kamala Harris is going to win. And if either of them win, what's that going to do to the Fed? What's that going to do to interest rates? What's that going to do to home prices? So at the end of the day, when you are considering these, this is my game because I lend on flips. I do. I love doing bridge loans. But I have flippers who come to me, Marlon, and their timelines on their rehabs end up around November or December. I'm like, hey, love it. I'm not going to touch that with the 10-foot pole because in your mini submarket, if Trump wins, that entire area is going to riot, right? Or you could be in another part of the country, and in that mini submarket, if Harris wins, the entire community is going to be in a riot, and it's going to hurt everything. And I just don't want to be involved in it because I know things are kind of wonky. So I love midterm. I love bridge. I think the risk is worth the reward if you do it right and you have the right operators. But I want you guys to always be aware. Trust me. A lot of times we just say, man, if the deal's safe and the operator's good, we're all good. This is the one where random stuff that you never thought possible can influence your deal, including who's going to sit in the White House. And we're seeing a lot of that happening right now.
Totally agree. No, totally agree. And I mean, and that brings us over here to this one. And this is where I think most people are most familiar. And this is your midterm lending and your long-term lending as a private money lender. This is a traditional private money lender. Now, when we talk about PMLs, I personally like PMLs. I'm biased. I work primarily with PMLs. And so I understand their world a lot more because they're the people that I transact with, and they're the ones who have helped me grow my portfolio over the last 3 years. And so with them, there's two forms of private money lenders. You really have the midterm level where they're in and out of deals, ideally in 6 months, which is like what Sam was mentioning. These are some of the people that, in fact, Sam and I are really these kind of lenders when we lend on land deals, right? We will be in and out usually from 45 to 90 days or so. And we'll put some of our lenders into some of those deals as well. Those are quick deals. Now, what's nice with those is they are fast. What also is really nice is your positioning on the loan, your level of security. Typically, on a private money loan, you are going to have the ability to control first position because you're controlling the purchase. You're allowing them to purchase and hold the property, which usually means you're wiping out any existing mortgages and liens and whatever that stuff is when the property is conveyed over to the new owner. And that's one of my favorite things is because now if anything happens, they're able to, God forbid, we get abducted by aliens, we could just fire sell the property, right? You as a lender could simply take the property back and fire sell it. You could go on with the project. But if you're like, I don't ever want to touch the project, hopefully you did your due diligence. You saw that we're buying properties for 40 and 50 cents on the dollar, and you're just going to go sell it. And usually you can still sell it as is and make a profit. That's the securement that you get with being a PML. Now, with these loans, you're typically going to be getting anywhere between an 8 and a 15% typically as your return on your investment. Have we given returns that are higher? Yes. Have we given returns that are lower? Actually, no, I don't think so. I think I've always given at least an 8% because, quite frankly, if you're getting less than an 8% as a private money lender, I just don't think that's kind of, it's either greedy of the investor that you're working with, or if they're like, hey, we need it to be less in order to make the deal work. And we're not talking about a deal that is like multi-millions of dollars of your money. We're talking about $100,000, $200,000. And they're telling you that they needed at 5% interest to make the deal work. Run away from that deal immediately because that's a shitty deal. It's a terrible deal. You cannot tell me that in order to make this deal work, we need to drop the interest rate of the lender down to 5%. And now it gets over the line. That's the deal. You're buying it way too high. There's not enough equity. There's not enough options. So if you're a lender, run away from those people quickly. And if you don't know how to spot them, reach out to me and Sam. Like, we will help you. Like, if you're looking at a deal and you're like, I don't know if I should lend on this, we'll help. We'll look at the deal for you and just we'll give our opinion because that's all we can ever give is an opinion. But with this, like, that's midterm. Long term is effectively the same thing. It's just going to be for 6 months or longer. So typically on long-term loans, you're looking at anywhere from a year on average. 12 months is what's normal to 2 or 3 years. These loans typically go into properties that people are going to be doing one of two things. They're either doing a longer fix and flip with the project, or they're going to do a buy and hold, and they're effectively running a burst strategy, whether it's on a single family, a multifamily, a large multifamily. It's the same concept that they're using the money to get into the deal quickly. And so you're able to help them get into the deal quickly by lending to them. And then they're either selling it for a profit and repaying you back your interest, or they're going to refinance the property down the road because of how much equity is in the deal and use the refinance funds to pay you back. I love these kind of deals because it's a win-win for everybody. But here's what you have to be aware of as a private money lender. And I've like, Sam, I don't know if you've had this happen. I've like yelled at some of my private money lenders because they have given me money purely off of trust, and they are not doing due diligence to check out the deal. I've sent my private money lenders like details on a deal. I'll send them the emails that have deal breakdowns, the numbers, the comps, all the things. And they'll message me back 5 minutes later, says, it looks great. Let's do the deal. And I'm like, I know for a fact that in 5 minutes you did not read this entire thing. And like you looked at it and you saw my name, you saw my picture, and you said, let's lend. And
Yeah,
I'm
bro. It,
grateful
it
to
took
have
me
that.
30 minutes to underwrite that damn thing.
Yeah, dude. I'm grateful that people have that level of trust, and you want that level of trust with your operator. You want that level of relationship. However, if you're going to be doing this professionally, and you're going to become a lender, and you're going to go and lend to people outside of me and Sam, you're going to go lend to strangers effectively. You need to underwrite. You need to do due diligence. So you actually still need to have the skill set of being able to identify a good deal, almost as if you were a wholesaler, almost as if you were a flipper. You don't actually need to go swing the hammer. You don't have to manage the cruise, which is the plus side. You truly do get to sit back and be like the bank. But just like Chase and just like Wells Fargo, they have underwriters and they actually underwrite the deals and they will approve or deny the loan. So don't be afraid to deny and say, I'm not putting my money in that deal, with the rationale and the reason, and be able to tell the borrower why you don't want to invest. If you're just saying, I don't want to invest because I'm scared, you're showing your ignorance and you're not working on your craft. You're not working on your business. But if you say, I'm not lending because I noticed that your ARV is actually only, it's a very small margin. And if something goes wrong, I don't want to have to take over this project and I don't want you to lose money. I want this to be a good experience for you. And I want this to be a safe experience for me. For that reason, I'm going to say no to the deal. Lenders, this is where you should be looking. This is like lower. This is second highest tier. The next one that we're going to show is the highest tier, in my opinion, for what you should want to do as a lender. But this is where you could start lending. You could start in this place if you have at minimum, I would say $45,000 of liquid capital to go. And when I say liquid capital, I'm typically talking about, for these sort of deals, because of the length of time, you usually want it to be your own money. You don't really want to be using someone else's money. Is it possible to use someone else's money for these sort of deals? Yes. However, for these sort of deals, because of the potential length of time that a deal can go for 12 months, 18 months, you don't want to have promised someone else's money. And now the person whose money you promised is telling you, hey, I need that back for a surgery. And now you're having to go back to the operator and you're trying to explain to them that, hey, the money was never mine to begin with. You could get away with that on a transactional lend. You can get away with that on an EMD lend because of the short time frames. But when the time extends, time is what starts to hurt deals. And so when the time extends, there's just more opportunity for things to go wrong. So you want to be able to have as little moving parts in the deal as possible. Sam, anything you want to add on this one?
No, not on this one. I actually really want to hit on the next one.
Awesome. So this next one is PMP. This to me is like the crown jewel. If I'm a lender, this is where I want to be. I want to be in that place of being able to be a private money partner. And effectively, what this means, I'm going to break it down in the simplest words. It means you get to go and lend on a deal. And depending on the deal structure and how you negotiate, you can actually get both a return on your money as well as lifetime equity in the deal if you are structuring it properly. Now, with these sort of deals, here's what I am going to say. PMPs, this is going to be one of the tougher ones to get into because you can't just bring money. Typically, if you're only bringing money, that's not valuable enough to get into the deal unless you've got access to like millions and millions and millions and like more money than we'll never have to go talk to another person. Then sure, you can start getting equity. But if you're just bringing $100,000 or just $200,000, that's not enough value. What you need to be able to bring is money as well as some form of experience, some form of operations, of management. You need to bring some other resource that adds to the actual operation of the deal. And this is where it could get really cool for you, because if you could bring something of more value that allows you to get equity, you potentially have the ability to get, your traditional 8 to 20% return on investment, but you also have the potential to get an infinite return, because after some time, when we refinance or we do whatever it is we're going to do, your money will come back to you. So you'll recollect your money, but you'll retain ownership in the asset. That's the crown jewel of it all, because at the end of the day, we want to have ownership of assets. We do all this cool stuff in business to make money, yes. But if we ever want to get out of the rat race, truly it comes from a place of owning cash flowing assets. And PMPs, this is actually what, again, Sam and I, we do this right now. We, because of our network, because of what we built over the last few years, we connect with operators. And so in our lending world, we do gap lending and then we do PMP where we will bring money into a deal and maybe we're taking a lower return on that money. Like we'll say, okay, I'll take 8% on that money. But when you guys cash out and refi, we want to retain ownership of the deal. And what we do is we'll bring different value, whether it's systems, whether it's attention, whether it's eyeballs, whatever it is, we will bring different value to the deal. Sam, anything you want to add on this one? I'm just like paying attention to the time and realizing how far over we are.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna have time for Q&A today, unfortunately, but that's okay because next week's gonna be one of the best episodes ever. Okay, so two things I want to hit on. One, I want to go back just like a little bit when Marlon talked about if you're a borrower or a lender, I'm gonna pretend you're a borrower. Do not let your lenders just lend to you knowing they haven't looked at a deal or underwritten a deal, because you may be the best. You may be absolutely phenomenal and you will never screw someone over. Awesome. Love it. And I'm not doubting you. The problem is this: you are rewarding the behavior of your borrower, or of your lender, sorry. You're rewarding their behavior of just trusting the name and not doing their due diligence. And here's the danger point of that: they will eventually go and do the same thing with the wrong person who isn't you. So to protect your lenders who are like your friends, you should treat them like your friends or your family, to protect them from getting screwed over in the future, right? Because what's going to happen is this: if you keep rewarding that behavior of them not doing their due diligence and just be like, yeah, it's me, it's Sam, of course I'm never going to screw you over. What's going to end up happening is you're going to go talk to someone else who does have a social media presence, who has some form of quote unquote credibility, and they're gonna approach with the same behavior because they've been conditioned and rewarded for doing so. So do not let your lenders skip that step. Marlon, it's funny, a good friend of ours who's an Olympic athlete, he is one of the biggest offenders of just being like, yeah, Sam, it's you. And then, but now over like a long enough time period of me like kind of yelling at him, he's so diligent with these deals. It's amazing to see. So I wanted to hit on that, guys. And then part two, here's the thing, guys. Here's the reality that people don't talk about, the PMP side, right? The private money partnering side, is that if you are a lender, just understand this: by nature of that operator allowing you to take equity in a deal, chances are they are not the best operator in the game. Because the best operators, right, they have what we call leverage. Their leverage is they have a track record. They're phenomenal. They have all of these things. Usually these guys are doing so many deals. They already have such a phenomenal network in terms of opportunity cost. They probably have people throwing money at them at 8, 9, 10% interest. They don't need to give up 8% interest plus equity over 30 years. The reality is when you are dealing with most operators who are allowing you to take equity, just understand that you may not have an operator on your hands who's done 100 transactions successfully. They may be newer or intermediate trying to grow. And I want you to count that in your risk profile, your risk tolerance. Now, the other thing though, for Marlon and me, because we're growing our brands, it's interesting the kind of space that we're getting into. We're doing these deals where we're bringing in tons of money for these people and we're getting equity. And it's not because, and they're some of the best operators in the industry. The reason why they want to do it is because the value that we bring is our ecosystem. The value that we bring is our following, our distribution base, our podcast. A lot of the guys who are the best in the game, they have mentorships or communities or masterminds or something like that. And they love partnering with people who have brands, not for the sake of like, you know, they'll leave money on the table in terms of equity. So they get the story of getting to say they worked with Mindset Marlon, and Marlon's going to go fly out to the multifamily and film a YouTube video, and then thousands and thousands of his audience is going to see it. And then guess what ends up happening to the operator that Marlon partnered with? He gets elevated on a platform and he gets new eyeballs too. So I want you guys to really absolutely start understanding that. But dude, I'm loving this. This is so good. This is so damn good.
And I would say this, what I've discovered, and this actually blew my mind, and I'm just being real, a lot of it too with the partners, it's relationship. Because the risk you run as a PMP, it's a double-edged sword. you get the benefit of being able to partner with someone, but the risk you also run is partnering with someone. You're effectively getting married. And so, because of our character, it's just honest. Like, this is what happened. Because of who we are as people, people want to get relationships with us, right? Like, they don't want to marry us, but effectively, they want us in their lives. And becoming a partner with someone and coming together on a deal where you're both making money, you're both benefiting, is a really good way to secure a relationship, to secure a friendship. And so, there are times where we've been brought into deals purely on the fact that people want to create relationships and they want to solidify those relationships. So as you're working on yourself and you're like building your business, remember to consistently keep a good reputation. Keep a good reputation. That's going to it's going to pay dividends for you down the road. So let's get into this last little picture here, because we've got this matrix, my makeshift matrix, dude. So let's see, Sam. I'm going to see if this makes sense, because I drew this up earlier while I was eating some lunch and I was like, this makes sense to me. Let's see if it makes sense to everybody else. So on the left-hand side of this matrix, you've got less money and you got more money. And when I say less money, I'm not going to put us at $0, because you want to be able to get access to something, in my opinion. You should be able to secure for yourself at least $5,000 before you start getting into this game. That's just, even if you're not lending that money and you're lending someone else's money, you want to have enough money to at least eat and pay your bills. So if you need to go Uber, if you need to go Instacart or whatever, go do that first, make $5,000, and then come back in so you can have some breathing room to start becoming a lender and start being an investor. And on the top bracket, you've got no active income at all, right? So you, like, when I say no active income, I'm talking like no steady W-2 or anything like that. And on the right side, you've got more active income. And so this is going to act as a spectrum. And so in that middle, you're going to see that $5,000 per month. So once you cross over that $5,000 per month, you're going to be on the more active income side. So if you are making less than $5,000 per month and you have you have at least 5,000, but not more than $45,000 in your bank account, you should be doing short-term lending. Period. You should be doing short-term lending, and you should be focusing on things like Gator. You want to be an active income producer within the world of lending. And on top of that, I would say also get a job. Get a day job in the meantime. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. In fact, I kind of personally get a little pissed off that people like look down on people that have jobs. One of our good friends, Mamadou is a phenomenal real estate investor. A lot of people don't realize, because he has so much success now, that he was working Lyft. He was driving Lyft every day for well over 2 years while wholesaling real estate. And he was closing deals. He was making $10,000, $20,000 checks. But what he understood was, I still have to pay the bills today while I'm working on this business. And so in between rides, he would pull over to the side of the road. He would make calls. He didn't make excuses. He just did the work. And so if you're in that early startup stage, have a job and also work this business. Get a flexible job. Go drive Uber, drive Instacart, do something flexible, make day-to-day money, and then work on lending. Now, if you are having more money, you don't necessarily have the active income. Maybe you've retired, right? Because we come across a lot of people like this where they're like, hey, listen, I've retired. I'm sitting on a nest egg, but I'm 60 years old and I don't really know what to do, but I've got this $100,000. Cool. You should be doing some transactional lending, in my opinion, right? Because this is going to allow you to take that money and make it grow. You're going to have to put time into it. But when you find these sort of deals, you'll be able to get your money in and out pretty quickly, 1 to 2 to 3 days. And you'll start to be able to grow that stockpile of money you have a little bit faster, because you'll be able to deploy more of it. And that's what we want to have you do. We want to have you deploy more of that money. Of course, this is all things being that you're doing your due diligence. Now, on the right-hand side, where you've got not a lot of money saved up, but you do know how to make a good ton of money. Like, let's say you're just making $6,000 a month right now doing e-commerce or whatever it is you want to do. Still, if you're entering into the world of lending, because you don't have a lot saved up, I'm going to say that you still want to go ahead and start in that place of being a Gator lender. Because if you're making good money, but you don't have a lot of money saved up yet, what it tells me personally is your money behavior is irresponsible. You still have bad money behavior. And so when you're going to be doing a Gator lending situation and you're using your own money to do so, it's going to force you to start to develop money management. You're going to develop better money management. And so it's more here about developing proper skills and relationship to money than it is about getting the highest return, because you already know how to make money. You just don't know what to do with it when you get it. And if you're making a lot of money and you have a lot of money saved up, this is where you're going to start to hang out with that private money lending, the private money partnerships, and the gap funding. So look at this chart and figure out, where do you fit inside of this. This is a simple matrix that you can look at in less than a minute and figure out, okay, based on where I'm at in my profile right now, with how much money I have saved up and how much money I'm earning currently, I can fit myself into one of these 4 boxes. Sam, anything you want to add on this?
No, this is perfect, guys. And guys, I want you to start applying this to everything, even outside of lending. Apply this to wholesale. Apply this to buy and hold real estate. And because, dude, you know how many people DM us and they're like, "Hey, Sam, what should I do?" And I'm like, I know nothing about you. I know nothing about your life, what you bring to the table. So, more importantly than just this specific table about lending, I want you to actually take the more active income, the no active income, the less money, the more money, right? The axes that he's drawn. Understand that those axes can apply to wholesale, fix and flip, rentals, self storage, bigger asset classes, or even lending. So, dude, I love that. I want people to take that framework before you guys DM us and like, "Hey, Sam, what should I do?" This is my new staple now, bro. I'm just going to screenshot this and say, I'm like, well, where do you fall on this graph? This is huge. I love this. So thank you for making that. I've never seen anyone actually make this, and I love it. I'm stealing it.
Love it, dude. So, guys, we somehow went 16 minutes over the hour. Don't know how that happened. I was hoping we were going to end early enough that we'd be able to do questions. I know for a lot of people, they just took a lot of information in. And one of the challenges is, when you have the information, it's still like, okay, well, I've identified there are going to be people out here. I think a lot of people, because we essentially put out a message talking to newer investors. I think we're going to have 90% of the crowd who are looking at, I need to do short-term lending. I need to do that EMD, the Gator lending, and I just don't know how to do it. Guys, awesome resource. There's an amazing, amazing resource for this. And it's actually, he was here earlier, one of our good buddies, Ryan Scrope. And he doesn't even know we're going to do this, but you guys need to go and join his community. It is by far one of the best. I'm not even going to say one of the best. I'm calling it the best community on EMD Gator lending that I have seen out there for free. It is the best free community that I have personally seen. And the reason being is, Ryan is very to the point, very no BS. Do this if you want to create this results. And so if you're someone who needs a lot of like touchy-feely emotion and you need someone to coddle you, this might not be the room you want to go into. If you're someone that's like, listen, I just need a coach to tell me what the frick to do. Like, I perform well when someone just says A plus, like 1 + 2 = 3, right? And that's what you need. Go inside and join this community. Go to whatever it is, school.com/fund free. It's a free group. Join it, get in there and start taking action. If you're a private money lender or a private money partner and you're like, okay, cool, that's where you sit, and you're like, I don't want to run around and do all this active stuff day to day, and you want good deals, start networking with people, start finding high level operators. If you want, talk to Sam, talk to myself. We've got deals that are coming online here in the next several weeks that are going to be bigger deals. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, if you don't have at least $100,000, you don't want to talk to me right now, because I'm only doing larger assets. Sam, you're only doing larger assets right now as well, right?
Yeah, right now. And if I were to take anyone on, it would be accredited investors, minimum 50K. But the reality is, the world of opportunity cost, right, guys? I have to put more priority and emphasis on the people who come to us with $500,000, and that's just the way it is right now. So I like accredited only, and then 6 figures plus. That's kind of where we really start having meaningful conversations, especially because I'm going to speak to myself right now. I'm going ham. I said this earlier. I'm selling all my single family, and I am only going to be buying bigger asset classes, specifically self-storage facilities. And then so bigger asset, just bigger everything. So yeah, that's me.
Yep. So guys, reach out if you want to get connected on that. Next week, we will be back to answer questions. Because by the way, we didn't even say this. Tonight's episode 104, which officially means we just completed 2 years of consistently showing up every single week for this podcast. So shout out to you guys who made this possible. Joel, Peter, Jade, like just you guys are awesome. We love you all. We appreciate you. We'll be back next week and we'll probably do something really special. Maybe we'll do like another extended episode. I don't know. Sam and I will talk offline about doing possibly an extended Q&A again to celebrate the 2-year mark.
Yeah, I'm not gonna mention what. I already know what I'm gonna talk about next week. So stay tuned to our social media because my goal is next week for that to be our biggest and best episode so far. But dude, last thing, props to you, man. 2 freaking years, and we haven't missed a single damn week. Crap.
Insane.
It's amazing. All right, guys, we love you. Peace.
Peace out, guys.